we have entered a new era in the United States Senate. Joining me now is Senator Tom Udall, Democrat from New Mexico. And Senator, it was you and Jeff Merkley, more than any other two, who came to Harry Reid early on when you first got to the United States Senate and said, we have to reform the filibuster. And you were in a distinct minority, I think, of the caucus at that point. Did you ever think you would see this day?
I thought we were going to see this day because this is a victory for democracy and we've returned to the Constitution. And I think it's very important that we do that so that we can do the things we promised the American people we would do when we got elected.
How did it come about? I mean, I know from talking to Senator Reid's staff, from talking to Senator Reid himself, from other reports, that Majority Leader Reid was what he said back in 2005, he meant. Which is to say, he really did believe the importance of the filibuster, the importance of Senate traditions, the importance of a voice for the minority, particularly with lifetime appointments. He believed all that, and he has now been convinced he was wrong then and is right now. What happened? What was the arc of that trajectory?
I think what happened is we hit such a level of dysfunction. You know, in August, we were up against the wall, and they folded and put in nominees. And they said, well, we're going to go back to the extraordinary circumstances test. Well, they didn't. 2 months later, we're there again. And blocking nominees, there wasn't a compromise this time. And so I think it was very important that the majority leader of the Senate said, we've had enough of this. Let's move forward with democracy. And this is, as I said, a victory for democracy. And what it really means, it's about the things that we all care about, legislation, getting them on the floor, having good debate, and returning to the glory days of the Senate.
Well, I may quibble with you a little bit about the glory days of the Senate. The Senate's got...
There were great glory days in the 60s and 70s with great things they did.
It's got a pretty pockmarked record. But I would say this. I agree with you about this being an affirmative win for democracy. If that is the case, why do we still have the filibuster for legislation? It doesn't seem to me that there's any rationale that there should be a supermajority requirement for a bill to reform the health care system or to, food stamps, anything like that, when there's no longer a supermajority requirement to put someone on a district court bench.
Well, as you know, that was part of our package, and I think most of the senators that have been elected since 2006, and increasingly the old-time senators in our caucus realize we need to move to a talking filibuster. So we're out in the open, we're transparent, we know what's happening with these objections, and if you really want to slow down something and delay it, then you got to come to the floor and take to your desk and speak up, rather than hiding behind a silent or a stealth filibuster.
So, but what about this objection that's being raised by the other side, which I think has a little more bite to it than the objection on, that the filibuster was something amazing. The idea of essentially changing the rules in the middle of the game, and that's in fact a phrase that then Senator Barack Obama used back in 2005 during this fight, that if this can be done, if just in the middle of a regular week, the Senate can call to order and say, you know what? We're changing the rules today, then really it is just a body that is governed by the whims of the moment.
Well, we need to have the restraint. I mean, as you know, Senator Merkley and Senator Harkin and others, we had called for changes in the rules at the beginning of a Congress and then looking at them for every Congress. And so I think you shouldn't be doing this on a frequent basis, but we hit the wall. I mean, this was a level of dysfunction and a level of obstruction and delay. You know, the Constitution says advice and consent. It doesn't say obstruction and delay. And so what we're really focusing on is making sure that we come back to democracy. That's what this is all about.
Back to democracy. Senator Tom Udall, thank you for your time tonight.